So, dear students, we begin with another theorem today, which is a continuation of our chapter on Riemann integration. So, this is the additivity theorem, which we have already used several times in our higher secondary integration related problems. Okay, so let us try to prove it today. Let f from ab to r be a function and a less than c less than b. So c is a number lying between a and b. Then f is integrable if and only if the restrictions of f on ac and cb are both integrable. Also, when f is integrable, or when this case is true, integration a to b f dx is equal to integration f a to c f dx plus integration c to b f dx. Okay, right? So integrating from a to b is same as integrating from a to c and adding it with integration from c to b. Okay, so we denote the restrictions of f on ac and cb by f1 and f2. So what do you mean by restriction? Restriction means we are restricting the function on a smaller domain. Okay, so the original domain of the function is f is ab. We restrict the function on the subintervals ac and cb. Okay, so we denote those restrictions by f1 and f2. So f1 is a function from ac to r, which is which satisfies f1 of x equal to fx for every x inside ac. Similarly, f2 of x is same as fx for all x inside cb. Okay, so there are two parts, if and only if. So let us start with the first part, and that is the necessary part. Let f be integrable on closed interval ab, and let epsilon greater than 0 be given. Then a partition, there exists a partition P of ab such that UPF minus LPF is less than epsilon. Okay, this follows from the condition of integrability. So we already got a partition P of AB which satisfies UPF minus LPF less than epsilon, and we now have another point inside AB. So you take the union of P with this point C. So we get P star equal to P union C. Then P star is also a refinement of P. It is also a partition of P, and it is actually a refinement of P. Okay, it may happen that P star is same as P if the original partition contains a C as one of those partition points. Okay, so that's not a problem for us, but P star is a refinement of P. So the refinement increases the lower sum and decreases the upper sum. This we have done several times, and it's very important here. So U P star f minus LP star f will be ultimately, so the oscillatory sum ultimately reduces in when we consider a refinement, the oscillatory sum decreases. So UP star f minus LP star f is less than or equal to UPF minus LPF, and this is less than epsilon that we have already seen, right? Now let us compute what is UP star f minus LP star f. So you observe that if P is this partition, a equal to x0, x1, x2 up to xn, C is a point inside AB, so C will be lying somewhere here between some xr minus 1 and xr. So for some r equal to 1 to up to n, right? So C will lie between two of these points of the partitions, right? So you take so from here to here, if we take the partition from A to C, this portion is a partition of AC, closed interval AC, and this portion C to B, it is a partition of the closed interval CB. Okay, and this is very simple observation. So so what is this portion? This is the intersection of P star with AC, and this green portion is the intersection of P star with CB. Okay, so P equal to P star intersection AC is a partition of AC, and P2 is P star intersection of CB is a partition of CB. Okay, right? And what is UP star f minus LP star f? So by our usual notation, it is summation mi minus small mi. So from I equal to 1 to r, we write it separately, and from I equal to r plus 1 to n, we write it separately in order to extract the two different partitions. So this sum is nothing but u p1 f1 minus l p1 f1, and this sum is nothing but u p2 f2 minus l p2 f2, because the portion from I equal to r plus 1 to n represents the partition of CB, and the portion from I equal to 1 to r represents the partition for AC. Okay, so this is the difference. Now so from 1 and 2, 1 was this inequality and 2 is this equality. So from 1 and 2 we can see that this sum plus this sum is less than epsilon. But can we write that each of these is less than epsilon? This can be written because each oscillatory sum, this expression UPF minus LPF, that is called oscillatory sum, each oscillatory sum is non-negative, because the lower sum is always less than the upper sum. Okay, so each of these quantities is non-negative, so, and their sum is less than epsilon, so both of them have to be less than epsilon. If any of them is greater than epsilon, then their sum has to be greater than epsilon. Okay, because both are non-negative, so both should be less than epsilon. So we get partitions P1 and P2 of AC and CB such that UP1 F1 minus LP1 F1 is less than epsilon, and UP2 F2 minus LP2 F2 is less than epsilon. This means that F1 and F2 are integrable. Okay, necessary condition for integrability, sufficient condition for integrability is the existence of one partition which satisfies this. Okay, so F1 and F2 are integrable. So conversely, let F1 and F2 be integrable on AC and CB respectively, and let epsilon greater than 0 be given. So since they are integrable, so there exists partition P1 of AC and P2 of CB which satisfy UP1 F1 minus LP1 F1 is less than epsilon by 2, and UP2 F2 minus LP2 F2 is less than epsilon by 2. So again you take P equal to P1 union P2. So P1 was a partition of AC, P2 was the partition of CB. Their union is obviously partition of AB. Then P is a partition of AB, and as shown in the first part, this difference UPF minus LPF is actually UP1 F1 minus LP1 F1 plus UP2 F2 minus LP2 F2. And this part is less than epsilon by 2 plus epsilon by 2, which is epsilon. So F is integrable. So we have shown. The next part that remains is we have to show integration of a to b f dx is same as integration a to c f dx plus integration c to b f dx. Okay. So when f is integrable, both f1 and f2 are integrable, then just now we have shown. So for any partition p of ab, we have UPF is greater than or equal to U P union C F, because P union C is a refinement, and refinement decreases the lower sum. Decreases the upper sum. Okay, increases the lower sum, decreases the upper sum. So that is why UPF is greater than or equal to U P union C comma F. And just like we have shown in the first part, this UP union C of F can be written as UP1 F1 plus UP2 F2, where P1 is P union C intersection with AC, P2 is P union C intersection with CB. And each of this UP1 F1 will be greater than or equal to A to C F dx, because integral is the infimum of the upper sums. Okay, so this is also integrable F2, that is so this integration, it is the infimum of all the upper sums. So it is UP2 F2 is greater than or equal to C2B F dx. So now what we see, that we started with any partition P of AB. This was any partition P of AB. So for any partition P of AB, we have UPF is greater than or equal to this quantity. So this quantity is a lower bound of the collection of all UPFs, such that P is a partition of AB. But what was A to B F dx? F is also integrable. So A to B F dx is the infimum of all such upper sums. So what should be the relation between them? A to C F dx plus C to B F dx was one of the lower bounds, and this is the greatest lower bound. So the relation is this. Okay. Similarly, LPF is less than or equal to the refinement increases the lower sum. So LPF is less than or equal to LP union C F, and which is equal to LP1 F plus LP2 F2. and integration is the supremum of the lower sums, so it is less than or equal to a to c f dx plus c to b f dx. So integration a to c f dx plus integration c to b f dx is an upper bound of LPF such that P is a partition of AB. But integration a to b f dx is the supremum, there is the least upper bound. So what should be the relation? This is the relation. Okay. So see how the concepts of least upper bound and greatest lower bound come very often in the Riemann integration theory. So from 3 and 4 we have integration a to b f dx is same as a to c f dx plus c to b f dx. Okay. Next, a corollary that follows. So if there are more than one points in between a and b, then also the result will be satisfied. If f is Riemann integrable on AB and a equal to c naught less than c1 less than c2 less than cn equal to b, then the restrictions of f on each of the subintervals ci minus 1 to ci are Riemann integrable, and integration a to b f dx is a naught c naught to c1 plus c1 to c2 c2 to c3 cn minus 1 to cn. So that way we can compute the integral. So it is just a repeated application of the above result. Okay. So next we have seen the definition of integration when a is less than b. Okay, so but while doing problems we often come across those integrations where the lower limit is greater than the upper limit. So this has also got some meaning which is defined here and which you already know. Say integration 1 to 2 x dx is same as minus of integration 2 to 1 f dx x dx, right? So that is the definition, the convention that is used. So f let f from AB to R be Riemann integrable and alpha beta belong to AB with alpha less than beta. Then we define integration b to alpha beta to alpha f dx as minus of integration alpha to beta f dx. Okay. So that is the definition. So if beta is greater than alpha, if the lower limit is greater than the upper limit, it is actually minus of the original integration. Integration is defined for a less than b, so we use that definition to define for b less than a. Okay, so another corollary, f from AB to R is integrable and alpha beta gamma be any numbers between a and b. So then also integration a to b f dx is same as a to gamma plus gamma to b. Okay, so here the order of alpha beta gamma is not important. Okay, the theorem that we had done, it was done for a less than c less than b. Okay, but here as a corollary it will follow that as a corollary, and because of this convention that we have adopted, it will follow that gamma may be any number. It need not lie between alpha and beta. Okay, so it's very simple. We consider all possible permutations of alpha, beta, gamma. So there are 6 possible cases. So if alpha less than beta less than gamma, then by the above theorem, alpha to gamma integration f dx will be alpha to beta plus beta to gamma. Then alpha to beta f dx can be written as alpha to gamma minus beta to gamma, but minus beta to gamma is same as plus gamma to beta. Okay, so using that convention, so this follows. Similarly, if alpha less than gamma less than beta, in that case it follows directly from the theorem alpha to beta is alpha to gamma plus gamma to beta. If beta less than gamma less than alpha, then we have beta to alpha. So the first line follows from definition, because beta is less than gamma or less than alpha. So first line follows from the theorem. So beta to alpha f dx will be beta to gamma plus gamma to alpha, and then we can use that convention. So beta to alpha can be written as minus of alpha to beta. Okay, so that way we use this. So it follows that alpha to beta is same as alpha to gamma plus gamma to beta. So similarly the other cases can be treated. So please try it. Now at the beginning of this in the beginning very beginning of this lecture series on Riemann integration, I had mentioned that the approach that we are using is Darboux integration, Darboux approach, the upper sum and lower sum approach, and the original approach by Riemann was through the Riemann sum approach, and so let us see what that approach is. Both the approaches are equivalent, that also will be shown. So for that we need to recall the definition of the tagged partition. If P equal to A equal to x0 to x1 up to xn equal to B is a partition of AB, and a point Ti is selected at random from each interval, subinterval xi minus 1 to xi, then the set of ordered pairs P equal to P dot equal to the collection of these subintervals together with some point inside this interval. Okay, so it's called a tagged partition of AB. Right. So if f from AB to R be a function and P dot is a tagged partition of AB, then the Riemann sum of f corresponding to P dot is defined as this: S P dot f equal to summation of f Ti. So the function is evaluated at the random point Ti multiplied with xi minus 1. Okay. So in the Darboux approach, this we had two such sums. One was the upper sum and one was the lower sum. Upper sum was the summation of mi into xi minus 1. So that mi was the supremum of all fx in the interval xi minus 1 to xi. Okay, so that supremum need not be attained. Right. So here we are not defining it in terms of supremum. We are defining it in terms of any random, the value of the function evaluated at any random point. Right. So this is called the Riemann sum corresponding to the tagged partition. Okay. So please observe that the Riemann sum is dependent on the tags, on the choice of the tags, on the choice of the partitions. Okay. So the definition of integrability comes here. A function f from AB to R is said to be Riemann integrable on AB if there exists a number I inside real numbers such that for each epsilon there exists a delta greater than 0, such that this difference between the Riemann sum and I is less than epsilon for all tagged partition P dot of AB with norm of P dot less than delta. Okay, that is the definition. Okay, so something similar to the limit concept that we have done. So if we can find a number I which satisfies that for each epsilon greater than 0 there is a delta greater than 0, such that the Riemann sum minus I is less than epsilon for any tagged partition which satisfy norm of the partition is less than delta. Okay, so immediately we have the first question that comes up here is whether this I, the number I, if it exists, whether it is unique or not. Okay, and the answer is yes, it is unique. Okay, so let us prove that if f is Riemann integrable on AB, then the value of the integral is uniquely determined. Okay, so let I1 and I2 belongs to f R be two numbers for which f satisfies the Riemann integrability condition. So let epsilon greater than 0, then so by the condition of Riemann integrability, there exists a delta greater than 0 such that Sp dot f minus I1 is less than epsilon by 2 for any tagged partition with norm P dot less than delta 1, and there also exists a delta 2 greater than 0 such that SPF minus I2 is less than epsilon by 2 for any tagged partition P dot of AB with norm of P dot, sorry, this will be P dot, norm of P dot less than delta 2. Okay, so we take delta as minimum of delta 1 and delta 2. Then what happens? Sp dot f minus I1 is less than epsilon by 2. Sp dot f minus I2 is less than epsilon by 2 for any tagged partition whose norm is less than delta. So we take one such tagged partition whose norm is less than delta. Then we have 0 less than or equal to I1 minus I2 modulus, and introduce Sp dot f here as and subtract and add, and then use triangle inequality. This will be less than or equal to Sp dot f minus I1 plus Sp dot f minus I2, and this is less than epsilon by 2 plus epsilon by 2, which is equal to epsilon. So since epsilon is arbitrary, so what do you see? We see that mod of I1 minus I2 is a real number, non-negative real number, which is less than every positive real number. Then the only option is I1 should be equal to I2. I1 minus I2 should be 0, that is I1 should be equal to I2. So hence the number I is unique if it exists. So we call I the Riemann integral of f over AB, and we write I equal to a to b f dx. Okay. So we will show that the Darboux approach and the Riemann sum approach are equivalent. That is, if f is Riemann integrable, even only if it is Darboux integrable. Okay. So that is why we have been using the terms Riemann integrability, Darboux integrability without any distinction. Okay, we just say a function is integrable. So for this course we mean it is Riemann integrable or Darboux integrable, the same thing. Okay, so in the next lecture we will see how these two forms are equivalent.